Welcome to Scoreography, a podcast about the greatest sport on ice, figure skating. I'm Wendy Buskey.
And I'm Adrian Buskey, and this is our World Figure Skating Championships 2024 recap. We are recording this the day after all of the major events have finished. We haven't actually seen the gala yet. That'll be the dessert on
It's the cherry on top
of an 8-course figure skating meal that was World Championships. This event was wild.
Absolutely bananas.
There's so much to cover here, and we're going to do it in one episode, so we're probably going to go pretty quickly through a lot of the different disciplines and a lot of the different skaters. There's certainly some that there's going to be a ton to talk about, and others that we're probably going to glance over swiftly just so that we can keep this relatively efficient, because you could literally do days of episodes dissecting this event. It was so intense. There was so much happening here.
We had so many feelings. I'm sure you had so many feelings if you were watching it, especially, and I'm going to roll directly into it, the final competition. In fact, the final skate of the entire competition. What the actual heck, Ilia Malinin? Wow. Just, I don't know. I don't have words. Like, I was stunned. Not that it should have been that shocking to see Ilia come out there and throw absolutely everything and explode the place, essentially. But a world record skate in such a fashion that looked so confident, I'm still reeling from it.
I actually don't think it looked confident at all.
Really?
I thought it looked like he had gone into a fugue state where he had just entered the quad force and had summoned energy from an alternate dimension, because this is a guy who didn't look mentally or physically healthy going into this competition, and had talked about how he had almost withdrawn because he did not feel well. And he was in third after the short program, which was a very respectable place to be behind.
Yeah,
Shoma
practically
Uno.
tied Yuma.
Yeah. But normally we see Ilia skating with this certain level of bravado, this machismo that he goes out with, because he's just such a confident skater. He's powered by crowd energy. He's powered by the thrill of what's going on. This was an event where we did not see that usual version of Ilia. We saw one that I think was falling back on his training and his conditioning and that certain specific Ilia Malinin physicality to carry him through when it really looked like he didn't even have the energy. So one of the things I want to kind of note here is that when you have a big sporting event, you always want to end on the high note, right?
Yeah.
And every once in a while you have an event where, because of how the placements land, you end up with kind of a dud as the last skate, or an event that doesn't live up to the hype or whatever. The men's event lived up to the hype. There was so much incredible stuff going on here. Obviously, the biggest talk is going to be Ilia finishing off with a total of 333.76.
22 points over a brilliant Yuma Kageyama. 22 points.
Yeah, absolutely massive. Now, I'm sure there will be hand-wringing about the fact that Ilia's pre-skate was super jump-centric and full of technical wizardry, but a lot thinner than some of the other programs when it comes to artistic merit. We've seen this program all season, and I think that it definitely did have more pizzazz in other performances. So why, when I say them going into this, I felt like he was leaning into what his body did best, because I don't know that he had it in him to throw a lot more into it. So he just did what he did best, which is throw extraordinary jumps at a quality level that is just untouchable. 6 quads, brilliant combinations, everything clean. I saw a few people that are, not Ilia fans that would be like, oh, but it was full of under rotations. No, we watched all the
slow-mos.
The slow-mos. There's no under rotations there. They're all brilliant. And also just a final combination that was a triple Lutz, triple axel combo.
Which he didn't need. He didn't need at all.
Yeah. We talked about, and for each of the divisions, we'll hit on our podium predictions and where we were correct and where we were wildly off. But one of the things that we talked about in our preview episode, and one of the things I said over and over again, was that Ilia is a technician who pays attention to what happens before him, and he will adjust his programs to compete, to get higher numbers, to fill in the flaws. I said then, I was like, I expect him to throw, I mean, I didn't say the kitchen sink, but essentially that he was going to throw everything he possibly had here, because He knew he needed it against this extraordinary combination of competitors. And you're correct. He didn't need to do that final extraordinary combination, but he wasn't leaving anything to chance here.
No, and I actually thought of your comment in the preview episode whenever we were watching Yuma, because the commentator made a mention of the fact that Ilia was standing at the boards watching Yuma Kageyama skate right before him. Competitors don't typically watch each other's skates. So when I heard that, my jaw dropped and I'm like, oh, he's using this as fuel. He wants to know exactly what he has to do because he wants to see what Yuma has thrown down, which, moving into what Yuma did, I really wondered at the end of Yuma's skate if that was the world title, because his free skate was magical, so beautifully skated. He had one error that it felt more like a lapse in concentration because he had done a triple axel, landed it, and then just sort of took a step back and then fell. So it wasn't really on the jump. It was more on the landing edge of the jump afterwards. It was just a little bit awkward, but he recovered extremely quickly from it. And based on what we had seen during the warm-up leading into that final flight of men, Yuma was the one I just basically had the best vibe about. Like, whenever I was seeing him out there, he looked calm. He wasn't perfect, but he looked ready. And I didn't see that same level of confidence in Ilia during the warm-up. So Yuma was so good and his score was so high that I was thinking, okay, this is it. This is where Yuma takes it. I was not prepared for what Ilia threw down. Regardless, Yuma Kageyama really earned that silver medal in a big, big way. And I can't wait to see what he comes up with next season.
Yeah, I mean, that was a world-class skate from Yuma. It's interesting to me that you mentioned the warm-up group because I don't think a lot of these guys look great in the warm-up.
They didn't.
Everybody looked nervous. Everybody looked shaky on their feet. We always mention the menning and the chance that everything can fall apart. And some of that certainly happened in the short program. We'll talk more about that in a bit. But in the free skate, this was a field of people who really came hard, ready to tackle this challenge. You know, when you see Ilia throw down as hard as he did, when you see Yuma Kageyama deliver just such a brilliant skate that would have won pretty much any other
almost
competition.
any competition, yeah.
Right. Most of the time, it was outstanding. But when you're going to get into the other real conversation, the thing that people are going to be talking about over and over and over again after this, it is the incredible comeback rise of Adam Shaohim-Fa.
It was amazing. Full disclosure, we were actually out running errands and didn't realize that we were already missing the first group of men in the free skate. Adam had a really rough short program.
A disastrous short program.
Yeah, and landed himself in 19th place. Coming into the free skate, absolutely not anything that he would have wanted, and put him in that first flight of men where it didn't make sense for him to be. Honestly, no offense to any of them, but he's at a different level. And honestly, after that short program, you could see that he wasn't sad or he wasn't super emotional in the like disappointment way. He looked angry. You know, I mean, that's a good thing. Sometimes it makes me think of Nathan Chen, his Pyeongchang 2018 Olympics, where you could see when he had a rough short program, it fueled his fire. And then he came back from, I think it was 12th to 5th or something, like in that Olympic Games with an incredible program. Well, apparently Adam had that same idea and was thinking of Nathan Chen. He even said that in his interviews and threw out an absolutely bonkers free skate that we missed in real time. But by the time we got home and started watching this program, Adam was 40 or 50 points ahead of everyone else. And from that point on, it was just watching skater after skater not meet his number. It's amazing. Oh, and by the way, he also did a backflip during it, took the 2-point deduction, and still did that. I don't even understand.
Adam went from 19th in the short program to bronze in the overall competition. 19th to the podium is unheard of. We've talked about earlier in the season that Amber Glenn had a massive rise from being in the teens into being just off the podium at one of the Grand Prix events. This is just absolutely unreal. You know, when we talk about the backflip and how we've seen Adam confidently throw that at events where he knew that he had such a padding that he was going to win regardless of what he did. He was doing the thing he knew would make the fans happy regardless of the 2-point deduction. Here, he didn't see the podium as a possibility. He just wanted to give a redemptive, great skate and do something that the crowd would go nuts for. So like you said, he comes out in the first warm-up group of men, annihilates the field with an extraordinarily dominant performance, throws the backflip in there right after his extraordinary Arabian. And I'm pretty sure that he had actually the second highest free skate.
He did.
So he actually beat Yuma's free skate when he started in the first flight. This is an absolutely unreal performance. And as a huge fan of Adam, I was thrilled. But even knowing the quality of that skate, it's almost unbelievable. And there's something to be said for the 4th place finish of Shoma Uno, which we'll get to in a second, which facilitates this. But at the same time, it is a great moment in sports. So something I want to touch on here before we talk about Shoma, because I know it's going to be rough for you.
It is.
Let's look at what our podium predictions were.
Oh,
for
sure.
this.
Good idea.
Because Wendy nailed this. Wendy called this podium.
As much as it hurt my soul.
You called Ilia, Yuma, Adam, and you even said it hurt you because you didn't think Shoma would make the podium, and you were desperately hoping that he would. My picks had been Ilia, Yuma, Shoma, mostly because I'd seen that vulnerability in Adam and I sort of expected him to have problems. And he did. I wasn't wrong when it came to that. I just could not have imagined how explosive he would come back, which was absolutely thrilling to see. So I was 2/3 right. You were completely correct on it. But I don't think either of us could have predicted how it would have gone down.
There's no way. Nobody could have predicted that. That's insane. The thing that I hope people take away, and by people, I mean other skaters, I hope this really inspires skaters to keep in mind this performance whenever they have a bad short program, that anything is possible. If Adam Shoham-Fa can go from 19th to 3rd, don't give up after that rough short program because you never know what's going to happen. But to go to the place that I don't want to go, but we need to, it's Shoma Uno in 4th. He won the short program. He goes home with a small gold medal. He even looked shocked whenever he did that. There's a really cute little kiss and cry moment where he sees his score and just quickly gives like little big-eyed glances at Stefan Lambiel, like, what? But it did not work out for him as well in his free skate. Honestly, just watching him in the warm-ups don't always tell the story of what's going to occur, but there was something about seeing him even at the beginning of his program, like the close-up on his face, where I'm like, this isn't going to be it.
Yeah, unfortunately, Shoma just did not look as in his element on the day of the free skate as we would have liked. I do think, though, it was very encouraging to see how well he took his scores, how well he accepted where he landed in things, how excited he looked sitting backstage waiting for the next set of results and how supportive he was. Shoma is an incredible sport. He is a phenomenal athlete, and it's also entirely possible that he might smile through the pain, like that he's that kind of person, but it seemed very genuine to me. I think that he was sincerely thrilled for the rest of the skaters because he has such immense respect for all of them. I'm sure he will be sad because he always just wants to make Stefan happy.
Yeah.
But these are still terrific skates from him. He was still wonderful.
He still fought through everything in that free skate. If there is something you can give to him in this moment, it's that he struggled through every jump. There was nothing that looked easy. I think his last quad of the program was his best jump, and it's the only one that really looked confident, but even that's a bit of a stretch. He fought through it. He never gave up. Compared to what he looked like in that warm-up, he did a great job. And the fact that he stayed 4th place, wasn't too far behind Adam, only like 4 points, so that's not too much. And I guess if I'm going to take anything as a fan away from it, I hope it brings him back another season so that he doesn't end his career on a note like this where he falters so much in the free. I feel like if he had skated clean and not made the podium, that probably would have been enough for him to kind of say, you know what, I think I'm done, because he would have made Stefan happy. But I don't know. There's a part of me that feels like maybe this will keep his fire burning a little bit. Like, I want to go back and just skate clean and have a good day. I could be really overly optimistic there because I just want more Shoma. But regardless, I love him. I'm happy he did well enough to get the small medal. And like you said, such a sportsman, such a good natured, like seeing him pumping his fists and like looking just as shocked as the rest of us when Ilia's score came up. It was great. So bravo to him. And I love you, Shoma.
But if you want to talk about beautiful, clean skates, rising to the occasion here, it's the fifth place finisher, Jason Brown from the US, who did much better than I think we expected in the overall rankings. We always thought that he would do wonderful skates, but I don't know that we were thinking top 5 finish for him here.
I don't think he was thinking top 5 finish here. I think that was a shock to everybody.
These were tremendous performances from Jason. He did not look very comfortable or confident going out there for these. I know he'd been struggling with his axles a bit. He normally has this big, bright ray of sunshine every time he hits the ice. You got that when they were done, but you could feel going into them that he wasn't sure that he was quite in the right space for them. At least that's how I interpreted it. But what we did get were tremendous performances.
They were so beautiful. And my goodness, Montreal, did you give him all the love? It was beautiful to watch. You could see how much it meant to him. He is just astounding to me. The fact that this guy comes out and consistently, 2 years in a row now, 5th in the world, no quads, no attempted quads, just proving the point that beautiful, immaculate skating is still up with the best men in the world. So I am thrilled for Jason Brown, and I can't wait to see his evolving career continue into next season as well, because it sounds like it's going to, and I can't wait to see more.
And also looking at the top 6 finish here for Switzerland's Lucas Bridgeski, I'm not surprised by a big finish for him because Lucas has been having a terrific season, but this was a really phenomenal turnout. Lucas had so much personality, such a great vibe. He gave 2 performances that were very worthy of the world stage. When you look at the scores and see that he was 5th in the short program, 4th in the free skate, still ends up in 6th. The math always feels weird when stuff like that happens, but if you look at the enormous rise of Adam Schau, you're going to see why things like that can happen. But Lucas was dynamite. He really entertained the crowd. He was so much fun to watch.
He was a blast. But also, I have to just take a moment of appreciation for Denis Vasilyevs.
Yeah.
In 7th place, his best finish at Worlds, I believe, and definitely his best in a while, with 2 gorgeous programs, a new free skate out of nowhere. And I had no faith, to be honest, when I heard he was doing The Lion King. I had faith that Denis was going to be beautiful because he's a beautiful skater. But Lion King doesn't really do much for me anymore. And he made me a believer. I love Denis's vibe on the ice. I love his overall sensibility. Like, you can tell that this is a person who just absolutely loves what he's doing and embraces every moment to the fullest. I could not be happier for Denis Vasilyevs to land in 7th here.
In 8th, we get a very respectable placement for Japan's Kalmura. Unfortunately, it just comes as a result of 2 pretty disappointing skates. This is a guy that we've talked a ton about as being one of those just under the tier of the very top guys and always one to watch out for. But the last couple of competitions we saw from Cal, he was looking wilder again. He was looking out of control of his skates. He has gotten so much more command over his skating over the last year, and then he seemed to regress in the last couple of months. Here, that just continued. It just didn't look like his jumps were under control. It didn't look like he was quite in the right mental place. He still did some really strong stuff once he got his programs together, but you could tell that he was just devastated when it was over.
Yeah, I mean, of everyone, he seemed to be the person that took his performance the hardest. He definitely seemed near inconsolable at points. So I hope he can take this and not dwell on it and just move on from it. It was his first senior worlds, and he has the experience now of not performing to the level that he wants to. And hopefully he can take that and roll into next season with a new mission. I think he is an absolute star of the future in this sport. And I hope that he can at least look at the second half of his free skate and feel like the real Kalmura showed up at the end. that's not nothing. You know, whatever he could do at that point in the competition shows that he still has that fight. So I'm here for you, Cal, and I can't wait to see what you do. In ninth, I think a bit of a surprise, but in a really good way, also in his first senior world competition, Nicolai Memela from Italy. Two lovely performances from him.
This is the dramatic opposite of responses between Cal Mura and Nicolai Memela, because Cal obviously went into this pushing for the podium. Nicolai went into this just hoping for good results, and I think probably just hoping to reach the top 10. Lands in ninth here, which is terrific. He was a little higher after the short because he had a great short program.
Yeah, his short was terrific.
He was in the final flight for the free skate. For a guy at his level, that is phenomenal. Even though his free skate was 12th overall and left him, ninth, a top 10 finish for a guy in his career, and especially thinking about the fact that Italy's top guy couldn't come to this competition. Matteo Rizzo, because he was recovering for surgery, couldn't compete. So I don't think there was that much expectation on Nicolai, and he really performed up to it. He was maybe a point and a half behind Cal for this ninth place spot. Really wonderful stuff.
Absolutely. In 10th, Junwon Cha, which was certainly a bummer. We had high hopes, but it sounds like June was still not fully recovered from the injury that's plagued him all season long. We saw him look incredible at Four Continents about a month ago, and it seems like he had re-injured himself or aggravated that injury either between Four Continents and Worlds or maybe even at Worlds. So he just wasn't looking good in practice sessions, came out here, did what he could, was ninth after the short program, 10th overall. It was a bummer. I'm not going to lie, because June is absolutely one of my favorites and just an incredible artist out there, an incredible athlete. I'd love to have seen a top 5 finish here for him, but regardless, top 10 through injury, finished out a really tough season for him, still in the top 10. And I hope that he comes back fully healed next season so that he can start over.
It's a shame. We've been worried about him all season, and then he looked like he was ready to kind of peak late here. Didn't quite come together. It was also just a really rough competition for the South Korean men in general.
Absolutely.
The other two guys in the competition did not perform very well. I haven't seen the actual spots of what they've earned for next season, but here's hoping they at least held on to two. Junwon is such an extraordinary talent. This is still a top 10 finish. It is nothing to feel bad about or embarrassed about for sure. It's just obviously not the level of what we would have wanted to see for him. What I don't think was a disappointing finish at all was the 11th place ranking for Estonia's Alexander Selevko.
He was phenomenal. I was so excited. I mean, not perfect. His programs had some issues, but overall, 2 stunner programs. He has his own style that I just love seeing out there. It was just fun to see someone who has really just in the past 2 months sort of risen up the ranks, come here under a lot of increased pressure because now there is expectations on him after his European medal finish and rising to the occasion. By doing that, he now allows himself to get 2 placements at Grand Prix next season. So I am looking forward to the future of skating with Alexander Selevko being more involved in it.
Yeah, also, I think this 11th place finish, he was the only Estonian male in this competition. So I think he locks 2 positions for them at next year's Worlds. And not for nothing, Alexander's brother is also a skater for Estonia. So it's entirely possible that he's just made it a real possibility for his brother to join him at Worlds next season if they both do well. So pretty cool. And yeah, a great skater, phenomenal skates here. So excited for him.
And 15th, I want to make a very specific point of talking about Donovan Carrillo coming in, the only skater from Mexico in the men's competition. We've seen him. We love him. He's always a show. He's been injured. He hasn't had the best couple of seasons. Oh my God. His short program was amazing. And his free skate, while not flawless, was next level for him. Personal bests. No one saw this coming, and I am so here for it.
Donovan is, of course, one of the most engaging and charming skaters on the ice. He's won such a huge fan base just for his enormous personality, the just genuine excitement that he exhibits every time he hits the ice and how much he connects with the audience. this was, I think, a really strong statement from him that he is not a novelty act, a guy who is a
Yes.
real up and comer in the sport, who has a lot of talent. He's working with a new team now, and that has obviously elevated his game. Yeah, his free skate needs a lot of work, and he needs to be able to hold together a program over a longer amount of time. But that short was dynamite. He's so much fun to watch. He absolutely won the crowd over. Yeah.
Completely.
And also in a Tiger, as we talk about the crowd response, and as we also talk about the performance from Canada's Roman Sadovsky, is just a shout out to Montreal and to the crowd there. We've been talking about for a while now how Europeans and how the Lithuanian crowd in Kaunas set the standard for event participation from an audience. For the first time in a while, we saw a skating event there that absolutely looked like what skating should look like. A thrilled crowd losing their mind for it. Montreal did a fantastic job of really showing up and being an exciting crowd and being so supportive of everybody.
Yes.
So everybody that was in the audience there, I so wish we could have joined you for this, because it just looked like an amazing time. And I was just so excited to see a crowd that full, that supportive, that hyped. And to get notably a really great short program out of Canada's Roman Sadovsky.
Roman, I'm so proud of you. The short program was divine. It's really an interesting piece of choreography. He looked confident in it. And it's the first time in a long time where I got the like, oh my gosh, Roman could actually do this. And yeah, his free skate was not what we would have liked to see. But I will point out that while it was not clean and it certainly did not move him up in the ranks, in fact, it dropped him, it was still a fight. He never gave up on it. He still skated through the struggles. He had problems, but I never saw the Roman that sometimes you see emotionally detach and just leave the program, but is still skating. It never happened. He was right there with it. So it gives me a lot of hope going into next season. So good job, Roman.
I do want to throw out a heartfelt hug to Boyang Jin from China. We were really hyped to see him here. He's had such a terrific season. When we talk about Adam having a devastating short program, it's ×3 for what happened with Boyang Jin. It dropped him to second to last place, and he never made the free skate with it. And this is from a guy who is just a beloved competitor on the circuit, a veteran who is just a wonderful, wonderful skater. Sometimes people just have wretched bad days, and that's what happened here. I hate that for him. I hate that for us as fans, because we should have gotten more from him in this competition. I really hope that he can shake it off and that we see him come back strong next season, because I love Boyang as a competitor. It's just a real shame to see that here.
It was. All right, let me move into something a little brighter and shinier.
A little.
A little. So we finally saw the thing that we had wanted all season, and it was Deanna Stellato-Dudek and Maxime Deschamps living up to all of the promise and getting that world title.
The performance from Deanna Stellato-Dudek and Maxime Deschamps was absolutely fantastic. To turn out two terrific programs on home ice in front of a furiously happy Canadian crowd was magic to watch. So
many tears. I was crying so much.
You were crying, and I was literally leaping in our living room.
You did.
Literally
physically
jumping.
leaping off the couch.
Yes, because I was so excited during their free skate. I think that for all that we talk about Deanna's fire and hyper competitiveness, she actually looked very nervous going into this competition. She didn't seem like she was quite settled into herself. We'd seen that she'd had some trouble in the warm-ups, landing some of the jumps. We've talked about earlier in the season that sometimes Maxime has struggled with a few of the side-by-sides and things. Those problems did not emerge here. What we got were two really terrific skates, a free program that was absolutely phenomenal. Didn't actually win the free skate.
No, but had gotten so far ahead in the short, it carried them through.
And it was still so exciting, so phenomenal. In the conversation of the last couple of years, it's been so much about how the pairs discipline has gotten thin and there hasn't been enough competition, and that so many of the elements have gotten weaker. And certainly this is still a division where there's a lot of space for new up and coming teams to improve
And existing teams to get better.
but what we got here was a world championships to remember with a lot of terrific performances, and seeing Diana Stellato-Dudek become the oldest woman to ever win a world championship, which is going to be part of the
In any discipline.
in any discipline. You know, sometimes constantly talking about a person's age that way feels very ageist. In this way, it is a celebration of somebody coming back to the sport well past the point when you would think they would have been in their prime, and instead taking the world title. That's a big damn deal, and she deserves every kudos for it. And this team, they really showed where your conviction can take you when you apply yourself to something that you really love, and they were just fabulous.
I really, really hope that this inspires other skaters to stick around longer, to not give up on what they want, and to not just assume that this is a sport for the young. It's really inspiring on a lot of levels beyond skating, just to see a person who had walked away from their dream for 16 years to come back to it and get a world title. That's astounding. So I don't have enough words and we don't have enough time. So I'm just going to leave it there because I celebrate them and I celebrate her. It is such an achievement.
In the silver position is my favorite pairs team, Japan's Rikumura and Ryuichi Kihara. This is them coming back after a really difficult season plagued by injury for Ryu. To see them return here in such beautiful form. These are lovely skates. I was just so enamored with all of it. They actually won the free skate.
They did.
By, I think, a relatively small margin.
It was pretty tight, but it was still there. They still got it.
Yeah, they were just phenomenal. It was beautiful, beautiful skating from them. I love this team so much. They were the world champions last year and, you know, are silver this year, which I think coming from the challenges that they had and so little competing on the international scene because of that injury, they've got to be massively proud of this. It was just terrific stuff. They're such a great team.
It was wonderful, and it warms my heart in a way I can't even describe because they had such a difficult season. The thing that was a definite bummer here, though, is that after the competition, Ryuichi suffered some breathing difficulties and was basically, it sounded like he was a bit faint, like he was having some dizziness. So they actually had to get EMTs to come and get him oxygen. And because of all of that, he and Riku were not able to participate in the medal ceremony, which was extremely sad. But it was so heartening and nice to see that Ryuichi recovered. It was fine. He's okay. Thank goodness. And then after all of the men's celebration on Saturday night, they actually redid the medal ceremony so that Riku and Ryu could be there. And as soon as I saw that, I desperately was searching online to be like, can I watch this? Can I see this? Am I going to cry again? But it wasn't anywhere to be found. So I'm just happy it happened. And so anyone who got to be in the audience for that, I am very jealous of you. And I'm so, so happy for you, Riku and Ryu.
Yeah, I was so glad that they redid that medal ceremony. A lot of people were kind of mad that they even had it in the first place when they couldn't do it with them. But I think that out of respect to an enormous crowd
in Canada
that was hyped for their new champions, telling all those people who had just watched that happen to just go home without a medal ceremony, I think would have been pretty disrespectful to the massive crowd too. So I thought it was handled well. And super thrilled for the German team of Minerva Fabian Haas or Hasse. I've heard it said a couple of different ways now. And Nikita Volodin. This team has had such an enormous come up this season. Just incredible on the Grand Prix series. And then having a big falter at Europeans to come back here, skate as well as they did, come in and take this third place position. Fabulous stuff.
They were phenomenal. And I am so thrilled to see another strong team that we can hopefully look forward to for the next several seasons, seeing them grow and evolve. They definitely came out of seemingly nowhere this season. And by the time they were standing on the world podium, it wasn't really a surprise because we've seen them do so extraordinarily well so fast. So I can't wait to see the future of this team. I really think they have tons and tons of promise, and this is just the beginning.
Yeah, they were awesome here. So if we look at our podium predictions, this is the second one in a row that you absolutely called.
And this was the heart prediction. This was the one that I even said last time that I didn't think was real. I was just putting in the names that I wanted to be where I wanted them to be.
Wendy called it as Deanna Max, Rihu Ryu, and Hassan Volodin. I was way off. I thought Hassan Volodin were going to take this and that Deanna Max would end up in silver, and not really counting on the healthiness of Riku and Ryu, despite them being my favorite team. I had really looked at either Beccari and Guarisi from Italy or Metalkina and Bralava from Georgia to be in that third spot. We'll hit those two teams briefly in a second. Neither of them really had a particularly great competition. But yeah, you nailed it with this one. Your heart was, when they say in the right place,
It was.
it was in the right place for gold here.
Yeah.
So very well done. But it's kind of funny and also probably frustrating for them that the Hungarian team of Maria Pavlova and Alexei Svievchenko have ended up in fourth pretty much all the time in this season.
It seems to be their unintentional favorite spot. I'm sure it's not their favorite. That's the wrong word, but it is where they land a lot. However, full credit, they had a great competition here. Again, they look like an extremely promising team, and good job. Fourth in the world is not nothing, so I hope they're really happy.
Yeah, I mean, this is a young team. I feel like their vibes are good. Their programs are really fun. If there's a place where you can look at growth for them, they're probably the most consistent technical team. They're really, really strong technically, but their programs don't quite have the emotional component or just overall PCS value. You know, when you look at the top three teams and then some of the other ones that they beat here, they're just a very consistent team that has a lot of room for growth. The ceiling is much higher for them, I think. A fourth place finish here is terrific. It's probably just frustrating to have been the bridesmaid constantly through this whole season.
For sure. In fifth, and maybe my favorite performances just as a fan of this whole competition, Annika Hake and Robert Kunkel from Germany. I was so into both of their performances, mostly because you could see how into them they were. There was so much joy and excitement and crowd appeal. Like they were there for the party, and I was ready to party with them.
I love Annika and Robert. I think this team is terrific. They're so entertaining. I love that they bring some rock and roll to the pairs program. They're so fun. I think a top 5 finish for them here is terrific. And just 2 top 10 placements for Germany. Big deal here,
very
right?
big deal.
Yeah, it's really nice. But yeah, Hake and Kunkel are fabulous, and I can't wait to see what they do next season.
So in sixth, we see Sarah Conti and Niccolò Macci. So they were in third after the short program. They had a pretty strong short program. Their free skate, not at all. It just was messy. It looked like Niccolò just was off from the get-go. Like he never looked there or really present. And I really wonder going into next season what we're going to see from this team, because they've definitely had a really up and down season, to say the least, and it's been more down than up. I don't know what to expect here, but it was certainly not the day that they wanted to have, I'm sure.
They've been plagued this whole season by just a certain level of disconnection between the two of them, but also just Sarah, through a lot of the season, had a lot of struggles landing things. So going into this competition where the reversal is suddenly she got far more consistent, and Niccolò, especially in that free, just did not seem to be quite in his own body. You got to the end of it and the look on his face, even in the interviews and stuff, where he just felt like a person standing outside of his own body wondering what's just happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel awful for him. These two, I mean, you know, they podiumed last year. They're still in the top 6. They are not the team that I would have sent. So the fact that they got here and still landed top 6 is impressive. I really would have preferred to have seen Giardi and Ambrosini from Italy in their place, because I love that team. I just hope they can kind of, one, get it together personally and emotionally to make this pairing work better, and also just get some new programs. This re-microwaved over and over again programs they've been doing are super stale, and it shows in their performances. So I just want Conti and Macci to come back next season with fresher stuff and maybe a new outlook on everything.
Or maybe with new partners. Moving on, number 7. Anastasia Metalkina and Luca Berlava. There were bigger expectations on them here, I think. They were 5th after the short program, and they seemed actually a little maybe underscored in that short because it was just damn near perfect. It was really, really strong, but they fell apart a bit in their free skate, landed 10th in the free skate, 7th overall. This is a team that is going to be on podiums for a while. So get comfortable with their names. They're going to be around, but it just didn't happen here.
They just won Junior Worlds.
Yeah.
Although they did it with a pretty messed up free skate that they were obviously super disappointed with. So that free skate has let them down 2 competitions in a row. it's the end for it. So, we shouldn't be seeing that one again. But we definitely saw a lot of struggles from them in that program here. They're a terrific team. I didn't really like that free skate all that much anyway, so I'm not sad to see it go. But while they're not necessarily my favorite team overall as just a fan, they are extremely talented. Yeah, it was a disappointing performance there because I think they could have placed a lot stronger than that, all things considered.
I do want to talk about a few other teams before we move on. I want to say big props to Leah Pereira and Trent Michaud. Their programs here weren't flawless, but they were extremely strong and they gave Canada a show. They gave the fans what they wanted and they got to experience something really wonderful on home soil. So good job them. 8th place finish is still really good for them.
Yeah, and a ninth place finish for Lucrezia Beccari and Matteo Grisi from Italy is very respectable. They obviously wanted better. They are the European champions. This is a team that went from a group that I didn't think that much of early in the season to now kind of one of my favorite pairs teams. I would have liked to have seen better for them here. I really do think they would have performed better if their training mates, Giardi and Ambrosini, had been there with them, because they were pretty vocal about the fact that they thought they should have been there. Not necessarily calling out Conti and Machi, but just saying that they really thought that they should have been along with them for the ride. I think that they would have performed better just with them there because they're so supportive of each other. But still, it's a top 10 finish very early in their partnership, so it's still very strong.
Rounding out the top 10, Anastasia Gulebova and Hector Giotopoulos Moore from Australia. This is a team of the future again. Another team that we're going to keep an eye on. Top 10 finish here is great. They were actually 8th in the free skate. I mean, they weren't perfect, but they were strong. I think that this team has loads and loads of promise.
Tons. And then when you look at 11, 12, and 13, it's straight U.S. teams. So all of the U.S. pairs teams kind of underperformed here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a ton to say about it other than I think that they all did kind of as well as they were capable of in this moment. I think Chan and Hao are capable of more than what they gave here, but they're still recovering from injury, and I think that showed. Ellie Cam and Danny O'Shea were at the top placement here with 11, but Ellie still can't land a throw, and as long as that is the case for them, they're going to really struggle in international competition. And Plaza and Fernandez did pretty decent here, I think, for their level. I think they're still a growing team, but yeah, none of our teams here were nearly as strong as the rest of the international competition.
Nope. And we will only have 2 pairs in Boston next year for Worlds. So that's a disappointment, but not surprising. Well, let's move on to the women's event where our predictions were absolutely wrong.
So
other
wrong.
than the top placement.
Yeah. So we were both pretty certain that we'd see Kaori Sakamoto in first place. We were correct, but we had nervous business over that after she landed in 4th in the short program with a couple of mistakes, then came back with an absolutely phenomenal free skate that was just a thing of beauty.
That free skate. The free skate of the night easily. And also just that reminder that Kaori Sakamoto is a legend in the making. The first 3-time women's world champion 3 times in a row since Peggy Fleming in the 1960s. So what an amazing accomplishment for Kaori, who really is sort of the ambassador for the women's division at this point. And you couldn't ask for a better leader. It just was so heartwarming to see her get this again. I just adore this woman, and I am so excited for what she brings to the sport.
Kaori's presence on the ice is such a wonderful combination of determined competitor, incredible jumper, and
goofball,
and goofball, but emotive artisan.
Yes.
I find her skates so moving and so exciting. She's just such a dynamic combination of talents. I'm thrilled to have her as our world champion for the 3rd time in a row, and that skate was extraordinary. The place that we were utterly surprised, and we were
completely wrong,
but also not by any means the only people who didn't see this coming.
No.
Is the silver placement of USA's Isabeau Levito, because man, we did not call that.
No, but I could not be more thrilled for her.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. That's the thing. Like when we were talking about her in the previews, we had very mid expectations at best because of what we'd seen throughout the season. But that wasn't for lack of desire for her to thrive and succeed. I'm so, so happy that she did. I mean, not only for her, but for US figure skating. The fact that she did land a silver medal for the first time in the women's event for the US since 2016 when Ashley Wagner did it. Incredible. And just seeing the shock on her face at the end of her own free skate of, oh my God, I just did this. Priceless.
I think Isabeau was as surprised as everybody else. She's had a really uneven season. Obviously a terrific artistic skater, but her jumps have been failing her through a lot of the season. Also just things like spins. I mean, when we saw her finish her short program here, she literally looks off the ice and goes, the spins, I did the spins.
All the spins.
All the spins. Yeah, she actually did them without falling, which is one of those crazy things that happened a couple of times this season. So when we were trying to make our own predictions, all we could go off of was the trend of Isabeau getting worse over the course of a season. We know her talent, we know her quality, but I think she actually rose above even what we normally see from her because both these programs were absolutely gorgeous.
They were incredible. And it was just such a delight to see her kind of come into herself, really level up to the promise that she has shown for so long that we all knew was there. And I really hope that this just continues to motivate her towards next season and especially towards the Olympics. It's so encouraging and just such a delight.
A big deal for the U.S., a big deal for Isabeau, and we couldn't be happier to be wrong about that.
Yes, I'm thrilled to
thing.
be wrong.
In third, we have Korea's Cheon Kim. So with three really wonderful, but sometimes inconsistent South Korean women in this competition, it could have gone a lot of different ways, and we'll talk about the other two as we go along here. But Cheon Kim came into this after we saw her in some small competitions where she looked really confident and really strong. So we weren't surprised to see her do well here, but particularly making a jump from sixth after the short into that bronze medal position is a big deal for this young skater from Korea.
It was wonderful, but I agree, not surprising. Like in the preview, she was sort of my dark horse, the one who could surprise, and I'm so happy she did. To your point, we had seen her not that long ago skate at a Korean domestic competition and look incredibly confident for being such a kind of mild personality who seems rather awkward and shy. And I just want to bring her out of her shell desperately. But you know what? You do you. She is incredible. And I'm just so happy to see this 17-year-old come here under so much pressure as the most consistent South Korean skater this season, which has to be a ton of pressure going into the World Championships to be that person and to really rise to the occasion. She did it. I'm thrilled.
It was kind of funny to see that podium afterwards because Kaori and Isabeau are such enormous personalities. They are both so charismatic, so bright, so engaging. And then Cheon is so reserved and quiet and does not emote in any large way. It is kind of a funny balance between them.
I was happy to see them bringing her along for the ride. Like, don't forget about her. She's going to stand in the back.
Right.
Like, I've been that girl. I know who she is.
Also, just big ups to Cheon Kim's mom, who designed and made her free skate outfit one of my favorite costumes of the season.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. It's brilliant. The details on it are incredible. It suits everything about it so well. It actually felt kind of color coordinated to Montreal's color scheme for the event too. It was super rad. So when we look at what our podium predictions were here,
wrong.
we had so much incorrect. Like I said, we both figured Kaori would be at the top. You had predicted Kaori, Mona Chiba, and then Luna Hendricks as your 1, 2, 3. But you mentioned Cheon as a possible upset. So you were spot on there. I said Kaori, Luna in second, and Anastasia Gubanova in third. My 2 and 3 had some significant meltdowns here that kept that from happening, while also both having a couple of brilliant skates. But that'll take us into talking about our fourth place finish, which is kind of a heartbreaker with Belgium's Luna Hendricks.
Luna Hendricks, who had the most sparkling, incredible short program that won the short program. So I'm thrilled that she does go home with a gold small medal for that. Coming into the free skate had so much pressure and it seemed to just take its toll on her. Landed in 8th in the free skate, 4th overall. You could see it from the get-go that she just wasn't there. She looked stressed. You never saw that light that Luna brings onto the ice and what we had seen 2 days earlier in that short program. Luna has this spark that nobody else does on the ice. And when it's not there, it rarely comes back. It was a really depressing, is I guess the word I'm going to use, free skate. Not something that is completely able to be come back from. I'm not worried about her going forward. I think she will be great next season, but I'm sure an absolute heartbreak at the same time for her.
She talked about afterwards that she had only done one full run through of that free skate in the entire time between Europeans and Worlds.
Which is astounding.
That's just terrible preparation.
Well,
But
and
she
yes,
was
she was struggling, yeah.
Yeah, she was struggling with some injury and illness. It was a hard time. I mean, I recognize that there are reasons why those challenges exist. To be perfectly honest, I think an 8th place finish for that free skate is actually kind of generous.
I agree with
you. I
you.
don't think it was good at all.
No.
You could see at the moment that she came out, it wasn't coming together. The short program is brilliance, pure brilliance. But if there is a problem that we've talked about through a lot of the season, there's some sameness between that short and that long that was Luna trying to bring out her own personal style and kind of push that sort of Euro technocentric kind of pop sensibility into it. I love it in the short program. I don't love it in the free nearly as much. And I think that in the end, what that program required of her and what she could give it just were a bad match. It's a bummer. I love her as a skater, and I have so much confidence that she'll come back strong. But yeah, very disappointing here.
However, not disappointing at all. What a wonderful competition from Kimi Rapond.
Yeah.
She's had also tons of injury. She'd had a lot of time off the ice because of injury.
And a massive growth spurt of like 8 centimeters or something.
Right. And her short program wasn't what she wanted it to be. She was in 12th place. But then she has literally what feels like the performance of her career so far, comes in 4th in the free skate, 5th overall. Just a joy. Watching her free skate was, to me, like what figure skating is supposed to be. Like, it was just delightful. It was warm. It was emotional. It was someone who you could feel was so present in the moment and appreciated it. It was so cute. As her music finished, she's in her final pose and she can barely hold it together long enough before she's excitedly jumping and like looking at her sister coach with tears. And it was just very heartwarming, and I loved every second of it.
I feel like that's a program we'll watch over and over again, like some of the other great ones from this competition, because it is so exuberant. We adore Kimi skating. She's so enjoyable. I really enjoy her as a persona off the ice as well. Like, I love seeing her and Isabeau Levito's friendship. It's so cute. You mentioned her sister coach. Like, we've seen some of the ISU videos where it shows the two of them traveling together, and it's adorable. This was a fantastic skate. After everything that she's gone through this season, rising to the occasion like that, it's exactly what you want to see at a world championships. And yeah, fabulous.
Almost. We saw the almost rise to the occasion for Heian Lee. In the short program, Heian Lee was 3rd. Better than any of us could have expected after the really, really tough season she has had so far. All the spark that we had seen in her last season at Worlds, where she won the silver medal, was there. It was absolutely present, and it gave you that little glimmer of hope that we were going to keep seeing it for the rest of the competition. And unfortunately, her free skate from the moment it began, similar to Luna, you just knew it was not there.
The whole time we've just been waiting for Han to do what she did last season and peak at the right moment. And the short program made it seem like that was what was going to happen. You know, the free skate didn't work out. But honestly, a top 6 finish for Heian,
Still great.
Still terrific. This is far better than I think that anybody probably would have reasonably expected or hoped for, considering the season that she's had. And considering the South Korean skaters had 2 in the top 10 and 3 in the top 12, this is really good. I just want her to bounce back. She's a fabulous, fabulous skater. And we saw that brilliance there in the short. And so I'm hoping next season they can address the issues that she's had with this one. But yeah, there's a handful of skates in here that are heartbreakers, and that was definitely one of them.
Another one was definitely the short program from Mona Chiba. Mona Chiba has had an incredible Japanese nationals, then followed it up with an even more incredible 4 continents that she won. And then her short program, it just was not her day. She missed her combination, and that took her pretty much out of the running unless an Adam Seo Him Fa event were to occur. Didn't quite happen to that degree for her. However, she was in 13th after the short program, was 5th in the free skate, and then landed 7th overall. So great comeback for her. Fantastic free skate from her. and really just shows that Mona Chiba is someone absolutely to be reckoned with as we go forward towards the Olympics.
I mean, the Japanese women were such a strong field going into this. We could have expected any of them to have been on the podium.
Absolutely. It could have been all three of them.
Right. And the 8th place finish of Hana Yoshida here, one of the more consistent people in this event, as far as she was in 8th after the short. She was the 6th ranked free skate for an 8th place overall finish. For as young of a skater as both her and Mona Chiba are, these are very respectable finishes for them. They're both capable of bigger and better than this. But let's throw it out for Hana Yoshida's tremendous triple axel in her free skate, and just the verve and energy that she brought to the ice with that same glowing happiness that she infuses into everything. So while both of them could have been stronger here, and certainly Mona Chiba's short program was a blow in a lot of ways, this is still 3 Japanese women in the top 10. It's still pretty extraordinary.
It is. And big shout out to Hana Yoshida for seeming like the person who most in the moment appreciated the fact that she was at Worlds. You could see her in the short program looking up and around the cheering crowd with this like level of awe, just in the, oh my gosh, this is actually happening.
Yeah.
And enjoying the moment. It was great to see.
Yeah. In 9th place, here's another really great finish from one of the young Swiss skaters with Livia Kaiser. Livia has really come on strong towards the end of this season. Several times at some of these big competitions, she's actually beat her teammate Kimi Rapond. As somebody who we weren't really paying attention to before this season, Livia has really made a case for herself. She did very consistent performances here. There's a lot of promise in this skater. There's certainly a lot of room for growth, but I think that means the ceiling for her is pretty high. Just in general, I liked her skates and I was impressed with her here.
Same. I thought she handled the pressure so well, looked composed and ready to be there to embrace the moment so well. And it was heartening. And not for nothing, like she was still in the short program ahead of her compatriot from Switzerland, Kimi Rapond. So it's nice to see these 2 Swiss women really showing up and saying like, hey, you're going to pay attention to us.
In our 10th spot, and again, a top 10 finish at Worlds is a very respectable finish, but our U.S. champion Amber Glenn did not have great skates here, despite landing that beautiful triple axel, which
I'm
was
so glad she did here.
Which was absolutely fantastic. We saw a lot of the same thing that we've seen from Amber, which is a struggle through the middle of her free skate, which often leads for her programs to fall apart. She's very aware of them. Physically, she has it all. She's got the technical ability. She has extraordinary artistic ability. You can see the judges wanting to reward her for what she brings to the ice, but she is not in the mental place to deliver those programs because she always seems to just sort of lose herself halfway through them. So hoping that as we go into the next season, we see something stronger here. These were definitely hard to watch at moments, but still top 10 in the world.
Top 10 in the world. And like you said, she's really aware of the mushy middle problem that she's having. And I saw several people make the point, there's nothing unpredictable about this. Like we all knew that this was very likely going to happen. And
It's
I think
what we thought was going to happen.
right. And while it feels awful to say that out loud, I'm glad that she's one of the people saying that. It's not that I want her to think it's always going to fall apart in the middle. It's more that she's looking at it as like, okay, this is a problem and how do I correct for it? Because I have to correct for this. She's very aware that this is an issue. So now it's just addressing it. I am still absolutely a big old Glenn head, and I can't wait to see her come back. And I want her to prove every single doubter wrong, including myself, because I want her to be the champion that she is so much.
In a much brighter note, the 11th place finish of Poland's Ekaterina Kurakova is actually a triumph for her, because for Katya over this season, we've seen a lot of, I'm going to call it blatant disrespect from the judges.
It's been rough on Katya this year.
Yeah, she has just not gotten love in the scores, and pretty routinely her short program, both versions that she had this year, just could not seem to get her in a good scoring spot. She also just hasn't quite looked like herself through some
No,
combinations.
she's suffered from a lot of under rotation issues for sure this season as well.
Her coming in here and getting to the 11th place spot, she was actually 10th in the free skate. She actually beat Amber Glenn in the free skate. This is the highest ranking world's position for a Polish women's skater in I think like 20 years. And her best placement, obviously, in that. So she was thrilled. She was really happy with how it all came together. She's just such a bright, wonderful personality. So I was very excited for her.
Absolutely. I could not be happier for her. Also, in 12th, and I know this one is really, really hard for you, so that's why I'm tackling it, is Korea's Young Yu. Young Yu had a wonderful short program, like absolutely gorgeous. Free skate, unfortunately, fell apart, and it wasn't terribly surprising, even to her. I'm sure she wanted more based on what we've heard and seen from her in interviews, but she knew she wasn't in the condition yet to be competitive in the top 10. I think the top 5 placement after short was probably a surprise, but a really nice one. We love Young Yu very much. Understand, listener, that Adrian made a sound I rarely hear, which was this panicked, scared sadness out of you, like gasp, whenever she fell on her first jump in the free skate. It hurt.
I'm a big fan of Young Yu. In the Q&A episode, I talked about how one of like my bunker programs is her on ice perspectives video. Certainly it's been a struggle for her the last couple of years, and seeing her come in here and give such a fabulous, sparkling short program. I was just living for it. I was so excited. But yeah, my biggest devastating moment of this entire competition was seeing her come apart during the free program. I was not prepared for how much that would hit me emotionally. I feel awful for her, but at the same time, a 12th place finish here is very respectable. And considering that her even making this team is kind of surprising when you think about some of the other really strong South Korean skaters who just didn't have great years, and that she came up enough in this season to come here, have that brilliant short program, have some great moments on the ice. I just hope it bodes well for her. She has been talking about what she wants to do over the next couple of seasons, including she wants to get her triple axel back.
She wants to party with Alyssa Liu.
Right. I was going to say the person she calls her best friend in skating, the US's Alyssa Liu, is coming back this next season. And I think that is a big deal for Young Yu. So I can't wait to see what's next. But yeah, that one was hard for me.
Just a few other mentions, like honorable mentions, if you will, as we finish out the women's event. Anastasia Gubanova, as you mentioned, was a podium placement for you in the predictions, landed in 20th in the short program after a deeply disappointing miss of her combination. That program had started off so brilliantly, and just one bad moment ended the whole thing. But she was 7th in the free skate, and that's not nothing. Like, absolutely a redemptive free skate, and overall proved why she's still one of the top women in the world.
Yeah, I mean, it was very much kind of like an Adam Schaum-Thaw kind of thing of having a disastrous short and then giving such a strong free that you can rise above. Obviously, it didn't get her to the podium, and it wasn't as good or as explosive as what Adams was. But yeah, I mean, that was a devastating thing to just see a jump just fail to happen. Just see her land and try to go into the combination, and her feet just didn't work. And you saw it in her face, and it just threw the short program away, unfortunately. But we've talked about a lot that Gubanova can just completely give up on an entire competition if something goes wrong. And when she came out and gave that free skate, she didn't do that. She delivered something that was really beautiful on the ice and felt hopefully redemptive for her. So an unfortunate thing, but still a terrific skater.
Yes. 15th place was Nina Pizzarone, which no one, I don't think, would have thought going into this competition, considering how extraordinary of a season she's had so far. However, Nina Pizzarone apparently fell down some stairs recently and started getting really bad nosebleeds. And in her free skate, had to skate with cotton stuffed up her nose so she couldn't fully breathe because her nose was bleeding so profusely. So the fact that this woman went out and skated at all, frankly, is absolutely huge to me. I don't even know how she did it. She's doing triple jumps. And I mean, obviously she looked labored, But with cotton sticking out of her nose, I mean, not only is that, for lack of a better word, ballsy, but it's just bold and
It speaks to her grit.
it does speak to her grit. That's a really good way of putting it.
Pincerone is one of the most consistent skaters in women's skating right now. She almost never falls. You know,
I know, it's so rare.
she's so good and she's so composed. I would have thought she would have been fairly high in the rankings of the top 10. Just to go out there and fight through what she did with half of her airway blocked. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. Our commentators didn't even seem to know what was going on until the end of it. Like they just didn't spot the fact that she literally had something shoved up her nose that clearly had blood on it. There's part of me that wonders if she should have been cleared to skate, all things considered, but she wanted to fight through it. Not the result she or we would have wanted, but still a phenomenal skater that I hope we see great things from in the future.
And last but definitely not least, I do want to mention Nina Petrakina, who had a wonderful short program, who was skating after only having broken her leg 3 months ago. I don't even know how she was here doing this. Her free skate didn't go as well, but she fought through everything. So absolute props to her.
Yeah, Nina is a terrific skater. We're big fans. She's shown tons of development this year, artistically and technically. There's a growing, I think, movement in Estonia of some really exciting skaters coming up the ranks. I hope that she takes that short program as validation for what she's doing and how strong she could be next season when she's fully recovered.
All right, we're at the last event. Damn.
You know, what's kind of weird to me is that of everything we saw here, I kind of feel like the dance event was like the least compelling.
Which is wild considering how great these teams are and how awesome it has been throughout the season. I did feel like a little bit of like the gas had been let out. As good as all of these teams were, maybe I've just seen these programs too many times. I don't know. Yeah, I agree with you. It was just kind of the least exciting. Not that it wasn't still really, really good. It just wasn't as thrilling.
There was tons of terrific performances. There were also some really surprising mistakes that kind of shook things up in places. Some really weird, make your heart drop kind of moments. But in no surprise to me, since I picked them as my winners. And if you listen to the show regularly, you know I'm a huge Chalk and Bates fan. And so having them as our world champion again, topping this podium here, really on the strength of their rhythm dance, because their free dance wasn't as perfect as we've seen it in other places this season, but was still phenomenal. But yeah, a gold here again for them is another bit of validation for how fantastic this veteran team from the US are.
Absolutely. And yes, their rhythm dance was just so flawless. I can't say a word against it. It was amazing. Their free dance, I thought, was still extraordinary. Just definitely a little places where there were some issues. And that's why we saw a few level drops from them. So their score wasn't as big as it could have been. Regardless, still a great show and absolutely a very well-deserved gold medal. And in a way, almost as much as it was, predicted by many, including by you, I felt a little bit of surprise just because going in on a home turf competition, I really thought this time it was going to go to Piper Gillis and Paul Poirier. They did win the free dance, but overall did end up in the silver medal position. I think, as we have talked about, their rhythm dance just isn't as strong as others, and it showed here. So with that, a silver medal is still extraordinarily great. I think it's still their highest placement in Worlds because last year they had the bronze. And their free dance, as much as I haven't really been a huge fan of it this season, it was really wonderful to watch with that Montreal crowd in the background just losing its mind. So great job by them.
I mean, I've pretty vocally been not a gigantic fan of their programs this season. I mean, I like this team a lot, but they don't aesthetically always work for me and what they bring to the ice. But this is easily the best we saw, that free dance. It was lyrical. It was beautiful. It was perhaps more melodramatic than my personal taste lean towards at places. But I mean, you can't say enough for their ability to interpret the music, for their technical prowess, for just the beauty that they brought to the ice. It was absolutely fabulous.
That curve lift at the end,
extraordinary.
It's amazing. And it is one of those moments in a program where you feel one particular element just almost bring a crowd out of their seats, and they're just leaning forward with this bright, shiny, incredible Piper in a position that just doesn't even make sense as Paul is holding her. in that moment, I thought maybe this was their world title, and it was close, but not close enough.
Again, it's that the rhythm dance was just lackluster for them.
It was.
For a team that
it was a bit slow.
They were much slower in that one, didn't look as good as it has in other places, and it's still just, and it's kind of a lackluster program. It just, like the whole season, you felt like this is the team that you would have expected to have most embraced that 80s vibe and given something really full of personality and that sort of camp that they're so good at. And it just didn't bring that to life. And so I think that's where it let them down. Had they had a better rhythm dance, they would have won this. But
for sure,
definitely Madison and Evans' Queen rhythm dance is
dynamite.
Yeah.
But in third, Charlene Guinard and Marco Fabri. I don't think this was a surprise either. I actually had them in bronze, but would not have been surprised if they had taken the whole thing. After the rhythm dance, they were in second, and their rhythm dance was flawless. For all that I can't stand the musical choices that they made, and I will now stop talking about that. It was just perfect. I don't think there was a missed hair out of place, like nothing. It was just flawless. But their free skate saw problems like I've never seen, specifically a costume malfunction with Charlene's dress at the very end catching on her toe pick. That could have been really, really dangerous. It was actually quite scary. And I'm very grateful that, one, Marco reacted as quickly as he did, but also that it happened when it did so that it really didn't impact the overall performance.
Yeah, so her dress got caught on her blade, and she has a little bit of a longer dress, but they had to get through their end rotational lifts with it caught on her. They weren't able to free her from it until the skate was over. You know, we've seen plenty of times that Marco has lightning reflexes and can respond to issues in such lightning reaction time. It's so impressive. But what you have to throw out to them here is the extraordinary professionalism of a team that can have that moment happen at that level of pressure and still complete their elements and still make those elements look good, even though they're doing it with such a tremendous obstacle in front of them. So for Charlene and Marco, yeah, that free dance was just a little shakier than we've seen other places. There's a reason why they're in third here, even though, like, you know, my prediction as I put them in second, I do love this team. I don't know if that malfunction would have changed anything about that at all. I don't think so. But I think they should still be really proud of everything that they did here because they were wonderful.
Absolutely. I think our podium predictions weren't too far off here, with you having Chalk and Bates in gold, Guinard and Fabry in silver, and Gillis and Poirier in bronze. You just flip two of those around and it's all the same podium.
Well, and you predicted Gillis and Poirier in gold, Chalk and Bates in silver, and Guinard and Fabry in bronze. We had the right combination of teams. We just didn't have them in the right order.
Exactly. And an ice dance, admittedly, that's always just a little bit easier to do.
Yeah.
I think to also no one's surprise, in fourth, Lila Fear and Lewis Gibson. I will say that I actually think that particularly their rhythm dance was a little underscored.
Yeah, I agree. It was really good.
It was super duper good. And while I know that they are not everybody's flavor, that particular rhythm dance, I think, just showcases a lot of their best strengths. I still think their placement here in fourth is correct, but I probably would have had them at least 2 or 3 points higher.
Given the performances that they did here, how exciting they were, how well and precisely skated they were, it did feel a little bit underwhelming in the score box. So don't know how to feel about that exactly. I don't always think the Disco Brits are quite the equal of those other three teams, but yeah, I do think those numbers should have been a little higher. But honestly, if there was a team I would have thrown all of the medals at that I maybe liked the best of everybody here, it was the fifth place Canadians, Marjorie LaJoy and Zach Legas.
I have to really rein myself in on this one because I could talk for days about how much I loved both of these programs and how much I love this team. Their rhythm dance to Thriller, I was not on board with in the beginning of this season. I completely 180'd midway through the season, and now I am its biggest fan. I think Zach, especially in that performance, just sells the living hell out of it, and I could not love it more. It's just so, so dynamic and really shows their speed and their ability to like get into character. It was just super fun, and they handled the 80s thematic so perfectly. But their free dance is poetry. It's just incredible. It's the one dance performance of anyone at this particular competition where I forgot I was watching a competition. it was just a beautiful program. It was just gorgeous to watch. And by the end, I was like, oh, that's right. There's clapping and there's going to be scores on this. Should there even be scores on this? Because it's just perfect.
I think Marjorie and Zach put everybody else in Ice Dance on notice here that they are the real team to watch in the come up now because they're extraordinary. Everything about this was fabulous, and their versatility to do something as character driven and fun and pop culture-y as that rhythm dance, and then to be able to do something as elegant and moving and beautiful as that free dance. That is what you want out of an ice dance team. You want a group that can do it all. That's the way I feel about these two, especially thinking about how them coming back from her having a concussion and delivering something as strong as what they did here. Phenomenal. I mean, I would have thrown them a lot of extra points. I would have put them on the podium. I loved them
so much. Well, I'm going to let you talk about the next team because I know they are your favorites other than what we just talked about with Zach and Marjorie.
Oh, yeah. The sixth place finish for the Lithuanians, Alison Reed and Saulius Amberlivicus. I adore this team. I have become such a fan of them over the season. I got on board really early on. I mean, their rhythm dances to Guns N' Roses. Hell yeah, I'm here for that. Their free dance is one of, if not my absolute favorite. It might be my absolute favorite of the season because I love the thematic of it. I love the story that they tell in it. And of course, their performance and crowd reaction in Lithuania at Europeans will probably be like the highlight of the season for me. I just love it so much. Those programs didn't shine quite as bright here. They were still both really, really strong. They were still wonderful skates. They just didn't have quite the je ne sais quoi, especially the free dance, I think, was just not quite as sharp, not quite as precise. The character moments were all still there, but it didn't shine quite the same way it had at Europeans. But that was also a lightning in a bottle, once in a lifetime type of perfect performance. Regardless, I love this team. Can't wait to see what they do next. And I really hope that Lithuania gives Alison Reed her citizenship so that the Olympics will be in view for them. And also that just so the country that she calls home can really become home.
Yes, to all of that. I second it. Love, love, love Alison and Saulius. Also, big, big love and a big step forward, I think, for Christina Carrera and Anthony Ponomarenko. They had a really, really good competition overall. Broke 200 in their combined score, which is great for them. And just, I feel like really took a solid step forward into that second spot for the US. There's been so much contention around like who really is the second right behind Maddie and Evan in the United States. And I feel like with these programs, not only did it show just how much growth Christina and Anthony have had, especially Anthony in his artistry, Christina in everything. Like, she's just wonderful. But I really am just thinking that this puts them much more solidly in that second to the champions in the United States very solidly.
This is one of those examples of a move to a new coaching situation that just helps a team evolve and thrive. Their work with Scott Moyer and Maddie Hubble has produced incredible results. They've come so far. I've talked a lot about how impressed I've been with Anthony this season. Like, the level up in him is impressive, but clearly Christina is just a star on the ice. And what they've brought together this season has been so admirable. They were absolutely phenomenal here. They were so close to the Lithuanians. I mean, like, that's almost a tie there between 6 and 7. It's a game of inches for sure. But yeah, so promising for them going forward. And again, when you talk about putting the rest of your countrymen on notice, that performance there really sets them up to be the stars of U.S. figure skating in the future.
Absolutely. And also, it was kind of almost a three-way tie with the 8th place team of Le Pareva and Brosseau. This French team has delighted me since Skate America. I have been in love with their short program, especially. Like, it's just so clever and perfectly 80s. For all that the commentators always seem just a little baffled by it, it is definitely one of my favorite rhythm dances of the season. It's just so quirky and different and unusual, but perfectly 80s. And they delivered in both the rhythm dance and the free dance so exceptionally well here. This team is different. They're unique. And I'm thrilled that they still maintain a top 10 spot.
I honestly think they were slightly underscored.
I agree with you.
And because of that, considering that three-way tie between the Lithuanians, the US, and France here, as much as I love those other two teams, I probably would have put La Pareva and Bissau over them here in these rankings. But again, it was so very tight. They're a great team. I love their interpretations. I love their character work. I just love their vibe on the ice. I think they are so strong and yet always get discounted a little bit because I think their aesthetic is so unique. But one of my faves, and I really dig them.
So, a few other mentions before we wrap this up. One of my absolute favorite teams is Turkila and Verslus from Finland. They did not get as high up as I would have hoped. I just felt like the judges were never quite with them this season. Their rhythm dance is not that strong. We've known that since the get, and it sounds like in interviews they know it too, and they're kind of happy for the 80s to be gone for next season. Their free dance is absolutely exceptional. I don't have enough words. Just go find it on YouTube. It's beautiful to watch, very modern, very different and unique. The judges don't seem to love it as much as I do, and
Fools.
I agree with you. A 10th place finish isn't bad, but it's not as good as they had last year. So I'm hoping that they can maybe talk to some of the judging panel and figure out where the problems were and what the judges weren't responding well to so that they can continue to move forward in the ranks, because this team should not be discounted and they're just so talented. I'm a little bummed to see them in 10th.
Yeah, that one frustrates me as well because that's one of my favorite free dances of the season. I think they're definitely underscored and underappreciated. But if you want to talk more on the positive side, even though it's a 14th place finish, it's a terrific place for them. It's Korea's up and coming young dance team of Hana Lim and Ye Kwan.
I'm so happy for the baby goats. And I stole that. I did not create that term. Somebody else on Instagram posted that they called them the baby goats. And I'm like, yes, I like this. I'm going with it. They are so fantastic. And for their first senior worlds to come in 14th, 12th in the free dance, I'm over the moon. That's better than I could have expected. I'm sure it's exactly what they wanted, but probably nothing they expected either. It bodes so well for them going forward into their senior career. For this to just be their debut, it's fantastic. They are so wonderful. And they're just such crowd pleasers. Oh, I'm just going to stop talking. I love Hana and Ye so much.
Hana and Ye are fabulous. We've talked so much this season about having discovered them right at the end of last season and seeing their growth, their evolution, their refinement of these programs. I'm so sad to see the end of this season for them because these programs are some of my favorites. I love them every single time. They only win more and more fans. And you love to see that with an upcoming team that isn't as high in the rankings yet in this hierarchical ice dance landscape where it takes so long to climb your way up. They have been making waves quickly. They got big scores here. You could see that there's something about seeing Marie France in the kiss and cry with them, just looking thrilled out of her mind for them. When you say baby goats, thinking about them as sort of future greatest of all times, I feel like this is a team that in 6 years I expect to be on the podium at the Olympics. I just think that they're a phenomenal team. I'm so excited for them.
Me too. I was bummed that we saw a 19th place finish for Olivia Smart and Tim Dieck in their first world championship together. They've obviously been at many world championships with different partners. They're short. They got very good response to from the judges. They had some problems in their free dance, but to be honest, even they seemed legitimately, I think, confused by the scores in the free dance. Specifically, Olivia just in the air in front of her face just drew a question mark, which I loved.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a little confusing. Certainly wasn't their best free dance. No argument there. But also, this is a team that is still coming together. So I am looking forward to next season to see what material they have and how they continue to grow together. I do wish they had been a little higher up here, but still thrilled to have seen them at all.
Yeah, I'd like to have some words with the judges over the scoring on that one. I don't understand what was happening there. I like this team a whole lot. I dig their vibe. I feel like I've said, the vibe check is obviously something that I've leaned into hard on some of these, but they're so playful. There's so much character to them. They just bring very different personality than the other teams do. And it's one of the things that makes them special. They've barely been together for a year, if maybe even not even that long.
Yeah.
So there's still a lot of space for them. So I expect a lot from them. I just hope they continue getting support from the Spanish Federation because they have been a little quirky about that in the past, and that they just get an opportunity to continue growing because I think there's a lot of potential there. Do want to throw one quick note for the US fans, and that the other US ice dance team that was here, the young team of Emily Brody and Ian Somerville, they had a pretty disastrous problem in their rhythm dance. Ian fell out of nowhere in an element, and ice dance is just that sport where like perfection is the standard. Something like that is colossally problematic, and it just wiped them out of the free entirely.
It was
So
just heartbreaking because they're such a talented team.
and Ian is so good.
He's so good.
You see sometimes a certain level of criticism of Emily being the weaker partner and that Ian being such a star. And in particular instance, he just got caught by one of those moments. Like she was delivering and he fell and it came apart. And it happens, unfortunately. Ice is slippery. It's not always your friend, and it certainly wasn't to them there. So I think we'll probably see a certain level of conversation about, it was already a controversial choice to send them over some of the other teams. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of conversation in the US Fed about what they should be doing about that. But I do think this team has a lot of promise and that we'll see better things from them in the future. But this was an unfortunate moment for them.
And now for the most important question of this episode. Who is gold in your heart?
There's so many choices that I could make here, so many performances that I absolutely loved. But in the end, I think I just have to give it to Adam Shaoen-Fa. That free skate was the fieriest, determined, angry, powerful, passionate thing I've seen on ice in a long time. I love his skating. I love the conviction he brings to it. And to see somebody go from disaster and 19th place to rise all the way to the podium, to inspire his coach, Benoit Rashad, perhaps the most reserved, unemotional coach in all of figure skating, Benoit, to get him to pound the boards and shake his fists in the air in utter excitement and astonishment. That alone is its own trophy, right? Just put that on a loop in your house because that's extraordinary. That performance from Adam, the talk is always going to be about Ilia here because of that explosive gold, and that is enormous and spectacular. But for me, Adam's comeback is the story I'll hang on to here, and that is why Adam Shaoen-Fa is gold in my heart. What about you?
This was tough because, there's Jason Brown skating like the master that he is, which is absolutely like the most heartwarming thing in the world to me. And there's plenty of others who did the same. But I have to go with Marjorie LaJoy and Zachary Laga. Her having had a concussion that kept them out of Canadian Nationals, and only a week or so or before World Championships was she actually cleared to compete. For them to come here and skate the way they did, to come in fifth in such a deep ice dance field, and to really take that step forward as hey, we're absolutely here to get on that podium and it won't be long before we're there. Their programs just blew me away. And as you said, like for an ice dance competition that really didn't excite me maybe as much as I was hoping it would, they did. They were everything to me in that ice dance competition, and I cannot wait to go back and rewatch their programs.
I do want to throw out too that, we're running through top 10s and notables. There's so many other fabulous skaters that were at this event, people that we loved their programs, that we really enjoyed, that just didn't kind of make the cut to talk about here, that still make me really excited for next season. I think that obviously the season is done now, but there's still some conversations to be had about it. We're going to do a kind of season wrap-up episode. We can kind of talk about some of our favorite things from the entire season, some of those one-to-watch skaters that are up and coming. We can touch on new changes to the rhythm dance stuff that apparently have been announced that sound even dumber than the first round.
We'll get there. We'll talk about that next week.
Oh my God. It's so difficult to sum up something as big as this event was in, an hour and a half, 2 hours. It's overwhelming, honestly. Like,
it is.
There were moments in watching this, like we talked about how this is the first one in a while that's been close to our time zone. So we were seeing these competitions in real time, at least a lot of them. And so those big moments like Kaori and Ilia we were seeing with the rest of the world. And they were tense. I mean, I was so anxious through some of this. We knew it was going to be like that, but like, oh my gosh.
There was more screaming than I expected in our living room. I'm really glad we're in a house and not in an apartment, because I would have felt bad whenever you were leaping off the couch physically.
Yeah. Yeah. It was tense. It was exciting. It was thrilling. It was, in a lot of ways, everything you could want it to be. My takeaways from it is just a real excitement going into the next year based on the stuff that I saw here. And now I'm tired.
Yeah, I'm really tired.
There was a lot of skating to watch. So many hours. I feel like we did very little. Yeah, I mean, you should see the pileup of dishes I just didn't get to in the house because we just had skating to watch. I didn't have time. So now it's time to catch up on a lot of other things, and then to reflect on this season and to think a lot about what we loved and what we want to see next.
Well, with that, let's wrap this up.
Yeah, so all things Scoreography, if you're new to us, you can find at our website at scoreography.show. You can find all of our episodes and all the places that you can subscribe, both as a podcast or to find it on YouTube. YouTube is the primary hub. So if you are listening to us there, please hop into the comments. Tell us what your reactions were. Were your predictions correct? What were your biggest surprises? What are the things that you loved most? We'd love to hear about it. We always appreciate getting your feedback as well on everything.
Oh, and also, just as a quick shout, anyone who was actually at the event that threw us the occasional message or tweet, which happened a few times, thank you so much for like making us feel like we were there.
Yeah, that was really cool. We appreciate that a ton. Just seeing some people that moments in the event made them think of our show. That means a ton to us. So we did love that. And also, yeah, if you're in the comments, tell us who was gold in your heart. We would love to know that as well. So we'll be coming back to you with a kind of wrap up of the season and just an overall view of the state of figure skating here in the next week. But stick with us because we have some other fun stuff we want to do over the summer before the next season kicks in. So for Scoreography, I'm Adrian Buskey.
And I'm Wendy Buskey.
We'll talk to you next time.
Bye.